And welcome back. We are
Welcome.
here with Grace Healing.
Yes, I'm Ina Hale.
I'm Larry Reynolds, and welcome. And for those of you that have looked at the videos prior to this moment, you understand that our commitment to you first is to enter into the state of prayer and seek God's presence first for your holy protection, and that you would only embrace the words that God intends for you during this time of discussion and the opportunity to share in God's love. And know that from Grace Healing, we love you dearly, and we are here to serve you in any way that you need. So feel free to reach to us.
Yes.
But we do center first in the breath of God's presence, as Yeshua taught us, to avun. We breathe first. Avun labachato limeste alon todo homo, totorvesh miguel bientara halon matakuria vashnachabana. In our previous installment, we stated the importance to allow yourself the time to breathe into God's presence.
Yes.
To
Very
actually
important.
sit with God. So we're just going to do this for 3 gentle breaths and allow for this moment of silence and peace and God to determine the rate of your breath that you breathe in, and trust in God's presence. We breathe as one. And as you exhale, you release all attachments to thoughts or words you have considered before this moment that we would seek God in the next breath through Yeshua. Exhaling once again anything that Yeshua might reveal within you that is not pure and of God's presence. And we breathe once again, drawing in the avun, the breath of God's Spirit. And as we exhale, we enter into this time to seek God's presence within. Yarvelachim, Bolivoroshum Ekotora, Yeshua Chemesia Kamla Kutora Machariashnikelian, Avun Dalavoshnigiana Karamus Seshimiatro. And I don't know about you, but in our last installment, we were speaking to the nature of God's love versus man's definition of love, or child's definition of love.
Yes.
And I kind of want to expand into that more, because
Yes.
it's not something to be taken lightly.
Not at all.
Because we don't even realize many times what we've accepted as truth that was birthed in us between the ages of 1 and 7.
Yes.
And I think that we have a loving God that is so perfect, so limitless, so understanding, that He deigned to make things simple for us. And we as humans have complicated the obvious. We've extended. You must go through this 14 years of training, or this 14 weeks of this training program, or whatever. When God is perfect, His holy attributes are perfect. So how do we measure our lives?
Exactly.
We look upon the perfect nature of God. And if it aligns with that perfection, we embrace it.
Yeah.
If it does not, we set it aside. So as we were sharing earlier in the previous video, we've been exposed to instruction throughout our lives, whether we're churched or not. We've been exposed to instructions of man, or institutional upbringing of schools, or we may have been through religious upbringing of some kind. And we actually quietly made little covenants in our mind, or if you want to call them allegiances that we formed within our thought process, that we really haven't even defined in ourselves intellectually. They're just there.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
It's the mindset. And I guess they say, I've heard the term, the mind is the battlefield of a lot of things.
Yes.
And either in how our perspective and perception on things, whether, like what Larry was sharing, whether you've been churched, unchurched. There's just things.
Matter. Yeah.
It doesn't. And it, again, for me, the easiest thing is getting back to the love of God that's within and seeking Him and to a greater awareness. Through my years of seeking God, that I experienced, there were teachings about, well, you got to do this.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to invite. You've got to do this. You need to do that. When really, you know what all I wanted to hear? Was all about God and who He was. I wanted to know more about Him, and that's what drew me.
Yep.
And the awareness that, wow, He made me special and unique and different, not only...
But can I share something from what you just said? Like moments ago, you said something, and I didn't even know that you realized that allegiance came out of your mouth.
It probably has to
The
do
battlefield.
with the battlefield.
Yeah.
See,
the battlefield in the mind.
I'm
She
still
said
learning.
the mind is a battlefield. Well, wait a minute. No, the mind is a tool of revelation. It's an instrument to show you what's there and not of God's presence. So if we look upon it as a battlefield, we've already assumed the mindset that we're battling instead of we're in a revelatory process.
And this is where I'm still, I know this within, but when even just speaking it now, of course. But at least, though, those that are hearing and listening can relate.
Okay.
To know what I'm talking about. A battlefield in there, again, is coming from that church setting and the way that things have been taught and in mind. So it has been a process. And you for me, had to have such an awareness of His presence and His love has grown to such a degree that I haven't been able to, it's gotten better to articulate. And that's why being with Grace Healing and reaching out to those of what I've experienced and seeing such changes in others as well. And the funny thing is, it's maybe not so much funny, but praying with other people, and even for yourselves, those that are watching, when you hear these words about the love of God and who He is, and just wiping away everything else, just leave it aside, and just welcome in His love, it is amazing how that just rises up within you. And I've seen them on the expressions of people, and you
Right.
have too.
Yes.
That beautiful glow of the true essence of that person just opens up.
It's a remembrance
Yeah.
and a return.
And they don't know that. I didn't.
Exactly, yeah.
And it's like, wait, what the heck are you talking about? I've never heard of this stuff. Okay, let's go back to the Bible. Let's find out where it is.
Exactly, and then
You
they get
know,
lost in it.
Yeah, and that's where you just have to trust and know that God, and do it yourself. That's why I say these are things, or tools, and a place that you can come and learn about the true love of who God is through Grace Healing. So for you to continue on, I just wanted to share that a little bit about.
No, I appreciate it. Yeah,
because there's always so much things. There's a lot that will be expressed in these
right, and then
settings.
you're also going to see times where Ina's going to connect a word that I said that may not be in perfect alignment with God, and she might say, "Well, even that word that you just spoke, Larry, that's falling short of the nature of God's presence." So instead of embracing the battlefield that is the mind, it's the revelatory tool that's revealing anything that does not reflect a nature of God's presence. So if we are willing to embrace the word battle, we're already willing to embrace the reality that there is war and it's justified, because we're convincing ourselves that within the mind it's a battlefield.
Yeah.
So, but God is not war.
No, He's
But
not.
mankind has used God to justify war.
Yes.
And that's spiritual in nature. As I mentioned in the previous video, Yeshua stated that every single thing we see of corruption that manifests upon the earth is first spiritual in nature, rising of the order of principalities. So if it's spiritual in nature, that it does not align with the nature of God's attributes, and we're actually willing to speak battlefield, we've aligned ourselves with the spirit of war.
Exactly.
Because we're going to be warring within our minds, within the conflicts of our thoughts, or the allegiances we have formed, or the perceptions we have developed that are not in alignment with the holy attributes that are God. Purity, sanctity, truth, order, clarity, unity. all these attributes that are the wholeness and completion of God. Those are the things that we are to embrace. Anything else rises, like when you spoke the word battlefield, and I waited until I wanted you to complete your whole thought, and then we came back to it. It's the importance of saying, I love you so much, and I want to remind you that what you did was you just revealed an allegiance, and it's my role within Grace Healing to minister you in love. And in the same way with you, you've done this with me before. When I spoke something, did you hear what you just said? You got to change your words. I mean, I think you just did that for me yesterday while I was driving around showing you parts of Booth Bay.
Yeah, yeah. That's why I was saying the verbiage, and I've had to take the time, and I've cut my sentences because I've been told that, like, well, you got to complete your sentence. Well, I'm trying to make sure, and that's just it. And then God has even said to me, just don't worry about me. So
yes.
Me, Ina Marie. It's just receive God and
yes.
His love, and that's the whole bottom line too.
Right.
It's just to receive and yield to Him and let Him love you. It's not about what you have to do. It's just to be.
Right, and actually you just really touched on something that could magnify and extend into limitless teachings and instructions. To surrender to God in trust.
Totally.
See, because most people don't understand what trust really means. They don't understand that when you trust God, you give yourself over completely to God. That includes your tongue.
Yes.
That includes your thought
huge.
process. So when you're surrendering, it's like I have a number of people, and I've served thousands of people over the past years, probably into the tens of thousands of people into the past years. And there's one thing that fascinates me is nobody really knows how to pray.
They have a certain way that they
they have a litany or a routine that they go through. And I'm like, well, why don't you surrender to God and let God form the words upon your tongue?
Yes.
Because
absolutely.
God knows the perfect prayer. But how can you do that? Well, you have to embrace the attributes of God to become one with God's presence. But then as you're doing that, you begin to realize that Yeshua reveals to you something that's not an attribute of God.
Yeah.
And you start discovering within yourself self-judgment, shame, or unworthiness. You think that you're not even worthy to approach the nature of God's presence. And you encounter these spiritual things, but you need to release them from within yourself, because again, they're in that revelatory tool of the mind to reveal to you that you're holding within you the spiritual nature of unworthiness.
That's right.
You release that into the fullness of God's love and move forward as you seek more and more of God's presence. And as you do this, you are moved more deeply into the attributes and nature of God's presence. And in that, as you breathe, we talk about that, very important. Breathing depth of God's presence throughout every aspect of your being. When you've entered upon God's presence, you've shed the attributes that are not God, then you breathe into the nature of God's presence. God will overtake your tongue, and you will begin to speak prayers of life, prayers of power, prayers of renewal, and they won't be something that is formed of your desires. God knows the desires of your heart, has already answered the desires of your heart, but as you surrender the attributes that are not of God, your personal desires and hopes, and you enter into the state of God's living breath within you, what'll form is the actual prayer for the moment. God's presence complete within that moment. And in doing so, you will find coming forth from your mouth the words, the structure, the counsel that will move you into the nature of the blessed state of prayer that is God within you. And what is that? God moving you step by step, progressively toward what He already knows you desire within your heart. So it's not like you have to bring the desire before God. You need to surrender the desire before God. And in that, then you'll begin to experience God within you, which is the step-by-step realization of each and everything that builds up the blessed nature of your experience before God.
Absolutely.
Excuse me.
Well, and I mean, it just to parallel Larry, again, for me and for others that I have prayed for, It's just that they're seeking, as you are, why am I here?
Right.
There's many that don't even know who God is.
Right.
They're totally have no clue. And all of a sudden, something's stirring within them. I mean, it's not an accident that you've come on here. It's not a coincidence. It's a God incident that you've plugged into Grace Healing. That God has so much ahead in your life. He planned it before the very foundation of the world, and He's got an awesome plan for you. But He just wants you to receive Him, to just know of His love, get to know who He is. There's nothing again that you have to do. It's just yielding and being in His presence. The very breath you breathe, your heart that beats, is seeking Him in that quiet time, even right where you are. You don't have to go anywhere or do anything. It's between you and God.
And that's one of the things that I've been fascinated about as I've watched Ina through the years. As she mentioned, she's been involved with Grace Healing for over 10 years.
Yes.
And one of the things that I've witnessed that is uncommon in my experience with serving thousands of people is her personal union with Yeshua. Not as I've seen it described by people. I've seen people from a religious mindset or a religious bent that describe their personal commitment to Jesus or their personal commitment to God. And they don't have a personal realization that they are warranted or worthy of actually engaging in a loving dialogue with Yeshua. And one of the things that I've witnessed in Ina and in her time with her husband Chris is this personal dialogue, intimate relational experience with Yeshua. And there are times where I kind of thought I was alien to this, because I couldn't find individuals that had this personal awareness that it was not God at some great distance, far, far, far away.
Yeah.
It was a God within that we sat with, breathed with, joined with, functioned with, allowed for the presence of God to exist through us so that others might know
Absolutely.
of God's love even as we embrace.
Yes.
And I even look in that in relationships, and just this small thought for you to consider. That for you wives that look upon your groom, or you grooms that look upon your bride, or brothers and sisters that look upon one another, what if, as you approached your bride, I speak to you grooms, and for those of you in the world that have forgotten, you're just married now, you've forgotten that she is your bride or your groom, but the reality is you guys were in this newness, this excitement, this opportunity to express and reveal love within your relationship. Sometimes in the world we forget that. And one thing that might help you shift back into that awareness is to surrender even before you approach your bride, or you brides before you approach your groom.
Yeah.
That is, God, I surrender first unto you, that as I embrace my bride, that she would feel and know you first, me second. As we look to our brother or our sister, Yahweh, I thank you for the gift of this, my sister. As I embrace my sister, may she know you first, me second. And you will find that you are not subordinate to God's presence, but you are magnified in love, so that the person before you does recognize God first, which is the highest order, the perfect offering of love.
Absolutely.
Not the love they may have known in their youth.
Yes.
Not the love that I say as they heard in a rock song, love stinks, love's tough, love's difficult, love comes with this, love comes with pain, all these things. Those are human revelatory instruments that have shown you your division or separation from God.
Yeah.
Love is all attributes of purity and sanctity, and going back to the simplicity and how loving I believe our God is He made it much simpler. And we continue to complicate the simple. And God is here to extend perfect, pure love.
Yes.
We want to bring other stuff into it. And within, again, Grace Healing, we will commit to you once again, never to invade your journey, but to be present if you wish to reach.
Yes.
And we are here and available for you to reach out and call us by phone, reach to us by email, reach out onto the website, gracehealing.org. And we will be expanding that, by the way, because I know Ina, as our new executive director, she has some exciting ideas of what she wants to do between website upgrade, increased Facebook posts. We have a conference line for people to call into on Monday evenings. We'll put that information down below. You'll have access to that. You can call into the conference line. It allows you access to a weekly prayer and meditation call. So we're trying to set up a number of avenues for people to access what we believe and understand is a divine loving God without a requirement for you to participate. We want to reach into people's bedrooms, into people's living rooms, into people's homes in any way that they find themselves not going out to institutions to find the presence of God.
Yes.
And we want to help you understand the importance that it's not that God is resident within some institution. He's resident within the temple that is you.
Yes.
This is the holy temple of God's presence. This is the holy temple of God's presence. You are the holy temple of God's presence. And in that we have been formed as revelatory instruments to reveal God's holy presence. If we are not revealing God's holy presence, we are revealing what needs to be healed. So,
yes.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I do want to add to that is that there are those that have been involved in churches and you're watching it and you've got some issues and you're not comfortable going and talking to anyone, even your pastor, sharing things. That's why we're here too. God knows that. Mm-hmm. There are those that are in need of whatever that might be, shame, guilt, some things that you just feel that you don't want to share with anyone.
Even hurts or wrongs that you've experienced in the past,
Yeah.
Things that the institution you thought was there for you may have somehow violated a place within your past. We work with many people that have found healing with that as well.
And I just want to say that this is a safe place.
Yes.
This is a secure place. Because it's covered in God's protection and His love for you. And we're here as an instrument in serving.
Yes.
Just for you.
So again, like and subscribe. Push the button down below. And share with your friends. Just know that we are here to love, support, and see the nature of God's love manifest for you and His blessings in abundance.
Oh, absolutely.
Because we've seen
it's well balanced.
Transformations and changes for people and healings and restorations. We are just excited to share this with you.
Yes.
May you be blessed.
God
know
bless.
that you are loved.
We love you.
And Yahweh adoro kamora kasishli biedro komana kadan. As I surrender my tongue, that God would form the prayer that would land upon your ears. That each of you this night would find a deeper sleep than you have ever encountered, a sevenfold sleep, that for each minute that you touch in the depths of delta sleep, that it would be magnified like 7 to the fullness of your body, reintegration of your spirit, soul, and body as one, that you awake tomorrow refreshed and renewed within His love, and know that you are deeply blessed, surrounded in the possibility of change, restoration, and renewal, and that God's love is present within you to awaken and to transform the very nature of your life. We offer thanksgiving to know that Yeshua has established a hedge of protection around this time, and the holy and life-giving breath, the Abun, resides within us all. We praise and worship in the most blessed and holy name that is Yahweh Elohim, Yeshua HaMashiach, Abun Sabarech Hashmaklun Rebasma. Amen. Bye.
Yeah.